All right, welcome everybody. We're just going to wait for the stream to load up here. Hope everybody's doing well. We're going to do a video today on a very short and sweet interpretation of the symbolism around Biden's fall the other day. It happened on the 19th of March, which is a pretty significant day if you know about astrotheology. So just give me a moment. I'm going to go ahead while we're waiting for the stream to load up, and I'm going to add the links for the stream in the description. So just give me a moment to do that. For all the people who are coming on in, how's it going, everybody? Good to see you. Go ahead and why don't you sound off in the chat if you haven't done so already. Let everybody know you're alive and well. I know we've had a really intense few weeks here. I'm inspired by what's been happening, but just like any type of situation like we're going through as a people right now, it has to get a little funky before it gets better. So yeah, that's kind of where we're at right now. So, okay, it looks like we got the stream up. Go ahead and refresh the video. If you haven't done that already, you'll see the links that I put in here. There's two links that I put in to this video. There's one which is the video of Biden's fall, but I'm going to put that on the screen here in a moment so you don't have to actually go there and look. I also put in a link to an article I wrote way back in I think I wrote it in 2016, and I've been updating it almost every year. I didn't update it this past year and the year before because I've been working on a million other things. But the content's basically the same. I try to go, in the past, what I try to do is I try to pull all of the deceptive indication and warning events over the past year. I can't say the word that everybody's going to really know when we talk about these events like this, but we'll use false frame as a good, substitute. Think of the words FF false frame, and you'll get a kind of an idea of what I'm talking about. So today we're going to be going over that little event in there. Today we're going to be going over the event that happened last Friday, I believe it was, on the 19th, with Biden falling on his way up to the plane that he takes around as president. We'll just put it that way. And what that could mean. I personally am a Christian. I believe in God. I believe in a very a personal relationship with the Creator. When I say Christian, I don't necessarily say I have a denomination per se. I'm somebody who was an atheist most of my life, and I have a science background, and I've been pursuing truth really in earnest for the past 10 years. But I've always had a kind of passion for trying to figure out what's going on in life, in the world, in the cosmos, and whatnot. And so my faith, we might say, is not it's not any card carrying type of denomination that you might encounter in the world. So point being there is that I do think there's a lot of intention that the Creator puts behind how events unfold. The universe has been likened to the dream of God, where we are the dreamers within the dream. And I don't think it's any accident that psychologically we organize the information in our lives at our personal experience as a kind of narrative. And there's a whole lot we can discuss about that. If you're interested in any of that, like deeper psychology stuff, I have a good chunk of it on my show Into the Storm on edgeofwonder.tv. Check that out. And I'll just give a quick shout out for those of you who are interested. I am currently working on season 5 of Into the Storm on edgeofwonder.tv. We're going to have a lot of cool information on there. The first part of that season it's looking like it's about 8 episodes right now. First part of that season is going to be 3 episodes I'm devoting to what we might say is the case for why believing in God or believing in a concept of the Creator is actually real and valid. It's not only something that we can prove to a certain extent, but that the act of doing so itself has a lot of power in your life. It's a kind of like magic, you might say. So I'm going to get into the kind of science and the philosophy and the really deep arguments behind why that's actually a good thing, reviewing history, psychology, all sorts of cool stuff in my usual hyper analytical style. So in any case, though, okay, so let's get into it. So let's go ahead, and I'm going to share my screen, and then we are going to look at this video that I have here pulled up of Biden's ballet dance on his way up to Air Force One, or let me rephrase, the plane that he's been flying around in. Some people don't think it's Air Force One. And we'll see, and then we'll talk about what this could potentially mean as an omen here in a second. So give me 1 second. I'm going to share my screen. Okay, here we go. All right, so here we have Biden. He's about to get on Air Force, or he's about to get on the plane he flies around in. Notice, first of all, I just wanted to note it, have you take a look. Like, if you've been to the White House YouTube and you've seen the performance of his videos, like how many people actually watch his videos and the like ratio and all these things, it's abysmal. Like, Trump destroyed in a good way. He like completely established himself as an extremely popular president, arguably one of the most popular presidents in US history. On the other hand, Biden is like a total disaster. Like, the contrast between the two of them is striking. Now, during the inauguration, I don't even think it got 1 million views. Don't quote me on that. But here, as you can see, I don't know if you can see this, but for this video of Biden falling, we have 4.1 million views. And the like ratio is 53,000 to 2.3 downvotes. So 53,000 upvotes to 2.3 downvotes. Wow. All right, let's go ahead and take a look. So here we have none other than Joe Biden himself, or is it? Walking up the stairs, and boom, that's his first one, second one, and third one right there. Yeah, what a disaster. Let's just look at that one more time. I'll just back it up here. Oh, sorry about that. There we go. So he's going up, and there's one, there's two, and there's three. Now notice what's in front of him right there. Look at that. Of all the places for him to take a tumble, the president's seal is right there. Isn't that interesting? Okay. So let's go ahead, and I'm going to read you a little bit of something that I wrote. Whoops. And let me stop the share here. What's going on? And all right, here we go. So I posted this on Gab. So if you're interested in this writing, then you can go to Gab. It's right on the front part of my Stillness in the Storm page on Gab. As a matter of fact, what I'll do for you guys is I will take the post and I'll put it in the description if you want, so you can have something to look at there. And let's see. There we go. You can go ahead and refresh the page if you want to look at the post. Otherwise, I'm going to read it for you, so no need to go anywhere. And I'll read it, and then we'll have a little discussion. There's some symbolism in there, already nested in there. So give me 1 second. Let me pull up that. Okay. So the omen of Biden's fall. So just as a preamble, what is an omen? Well, an omen is a kind of event, and it's an event basically that allows you to predict the future in some sense. It acts as a herald for events to come. So for example, you might find a dead animal on your yard, and that might be an omen, given certain kind of cultural background, for some type of death in the family or death in some fashion. So it's the idea that you can interpret the events in your life and experience at a personal level or in a grand level by thinking about what they could mean in a grand kind of spiritual sense. It's very close to the concept of divination at a pure principle level, although divination has to do more with, like, in the past, divination was about like slaughtering an animal and looking at the organs in the animal after it's been freshly slaughtered to see what's going on. Looking at tea leaves is a form of divination. So in any case, so let's get into this. So the meaning of Biden's recent fall on his way up to the president's plane as a symbol for what's happening in the world can't be overstated. As I just showed you the video. On the dystopic side of things, so I'm going to look at the kind of dark omens. His fall represents the fall of the office of the president, and in turn, the fall of the United States as a result of what he represents as a globalist puppet if patriots do nothing. Thankfully, patriotism is on the rise the world over. So that's the dark side of things. It's the idea that, look what's happening to the office of the president. Look what's happening to the government. Look what's happening to all sorts of aspects of our dealings with the United States, our dealings in the world as the United States of America. All sorts of things. They're all crumbling, and we're falling back into the America Last deep state globalist agenda of Agenda 2030. You know, the Great Resets, the Green New Deal, all these shenanigans, right? It's all part of the globalist plot, basically. So I think it's no accident that when he was falling, he fell 3 times, which is an interesting number, right? 3 represents the Trinity. There's often 3 aspects of things all throughout the universe, that when there's 3 of anything, it often heralds a significant underscoring. So isn't it interesting that Biden fell 3 times and he fell right in front of the presidential seal? Okay, so let's look at the positive side of this. On the positive side of things, his fall represents the fall of the deep state as personified by yet another empty vessel president, Biden, filled to the brim with globalist agendas and anti-life values. So what do I mean by that? Well, these deep state presidents, Biden is maybe the most glaring example of this, represent the personification. He's like the avatar of the globalist agenda, the deep state agenda, the anti-life agenda. When I say anti-life, I mean, well, I got to be careful what I say because I don't want to get like flagged by YouTube, but think about the antagonist in Christianity, who often it's Satan, right? So is there a religion that worships that being, that person? And what are the values and attributes of people who worship that? What kind of agendas do they often have? Is it possible that Biden and a lot of other deep state presidents, insofar as their agenda, represent a dark agenda? We'll put it that way. I think so. As far as I'm concerned, it's glaringly obvious. I mean, you got to kind of study the deeper aspects. There's Mark Passio is really good at this. He describes that true dark agendas, true dark occultism here, I can probably say that word. It's not the Hollywood variant that we've seen out in the world. You look at Sabrina the Teenage Witch, or Sabrina, I forget the name of the one that's on Netflix right now, but you get it. It's not this like Hollywood idea of it where, they are necessarily doing all sorts of, makeup-y and drawing pentagrams in the sand and all that kind of craziness. There is that version out there, but the real version, so to speak, of this dark occultism is something that deals with ideas, and it's not the worshiping of a man in red tights that looks like a devil holding a pitchfork. That's just a symbol. The deeper concept is anti-life. It's anti-truth. It's anti-equality, interestingly enough, but spiritual equality. So any case, so Biden represents the personification of that. He's like all of these globalist and dark occult agendas put into a man. And this man is like a hollowed out being. He has no soul in the sense that he's not really, consciously participating in much of anything. He's just a vessel for these globalist, deep state, big tech, big ag, big pharmaceutical agendas that are just like all poured into this guy. And I would argue that our friend, our military insider, and other people, mind you, it's not just our military insider, suggested that when the world wakes up, when the world realizes just what they're dealing with here, that it's going to change everything. And it will, because at a really deep practical level, at a really deep, we might say, how does the machines of control work? They work because we, the people, don't really know what the heck is going on. We are constantly, eating bread and circus. We're eating crappy food, literally, but eating bread and circus also means that, it's the idea that man cannot live on bread alone, that we have to actually like understand what's happening in the world and stop looking at these distractions on our phones that we're just flipping through all the time, and Netflix and, all this stuff. Like you have time. Time is your spiritual currency. What you spend your attention looking at and researching and understanding and exposing yourself is what you're going to know about. And if you don't spend your time looking at things that matter, looking at principles of truth, trying to understand where the world is at and how things actually work, then you're not going to really know. And, frankly, no fault to anybody for this, because these machines of control are very good at distracting us. But once that has been dismantled, once people really know what's happening in the world, and I think there are a lot of people that are waking up to this, truly waking up, not this fake wokeism that we see, but people who are really willing to be uncomfortable in searching for the real truth, to see the insanity that we're living in right now, then all of their controls are going to come crumbling down, because ultimately we're dealing with like a rabble of maybe, I would say in my research, at the highest levels of this pyramid of control, we're dealing with, a few thousand people who really know the full breadth of what's happening. Now, underneath those few thousand, you've got much bigger layers of the pyramid, right? And maybe at the chunk just above the people, you got the political actor, rank and file dark occultists, who some people say that there's, a few tens of millions in the world, maybe as much as 100 million. But we, the people, are billions. And what we're seeing right now, I don't think is an accident with respect to how many people are really, truly realizing what's happening in the world. Think about how many of your friends and family really hated Donald Trump. And they're like, oh man, Biden's going to be awesome. He's going to be so great. Thank God he's not Trump. And they're like, man, I don't know. The gas prices have gone up like $1. Various other commodities have skyrocketed. We're adding record amounts of debt to the national debt. We've got this insane mask and COVID lockdown policy that's ruining people's lives at record pace. My kids are deeply depressed, and the suicide rate amongst young people is skyrocketing. There's arguably more people who've died by suicide than have truly died without comorbidities from the pandemic. And I think a lot of people are starting to really wake up to what's happening in our world. And I think that's part of what this video represents, or that's part of what his fall on his way up to, the plane that he flies around in represents. It represents the idea that the personification, the puppet of the globalists fell. Biden fell. Think about that. Yeah, I think it means a lot. So let me continue. God works in mysterious ways, and God also uses signs as the grand allegorist of creation. So what I mean by that? Well, it's the idea, and this is something I'm really studying quite a bit and have been studying for a long time, but I'm going to be putting as much as I reasonably can into this, the Proof of God series that I was mentioning earlier, is that life is filled with meaning. Everything means something. And if you ask yourself, what does this mean in a grand sense, in like a grand spiritual sense? Well, what does it mean for you in your life, in your personal life, with respect to the events in your life? And then what does this mean in relation to the grand story and narrative and saga of the human race and the cosmos in general? Then you're going to find a ton of meanings. And do you really think it's an accident that the personification of the deep state, Biden the puppet, Biden the globalist puppet, fell 3 times right as he was coming up to the seal of the United States? I mean, think about that. If the seal is here, as a matter of fact, I'm going to show this again. I want to have this be in the background when I talk about this, because this is like so critical to understand. Hold on, let me make sure I pull it up here. So look at this. Look at where he falls. Right as he starts to, look at his first fall, right as his head hits the top of the eagle. The eagle is meant to symbolize the acme, the ideal. In a lot of ways, it's associated with the deeper astrological concept of the creator, the manifestation of the creator on earth, which, in Christianity, it's Christ. But what I'm saying is, isn't it interesting that Biden's first fall begins right as I'm going to slow down the video so we can really get take a look at this. There it is. So let's see. His head right around the place where the eagle is, his head falls. You see his head's right here? I mean, it's not perfect, so don't think, well, Justin, it's not exactly where his head is, so therefore what you're saying is BS. Like, okay, yeah, I get it. It's not precisely, but my point is that it's very symbolically relevant that this man's first trip is right as his body is in the foreground of "You Sail for United States of America." I don't think it's no accident. And then all of his falls. Look, there's the first one. Here's another one. He's going to go, bang. And then he falls another time, like can't even get up. And then bang, he falls again. It all happens while he's still below the apex of the seal of the United States. Is that really an accident? I mean, think about the way God works. Think about the things in your life. You know, some people out there might be like, "Oh, Justin, you know, nothing means anything. You know, the universe is just meaningless. I'm a nihilist. I don't believe in any meaning." Just because you don't believe in any meaning doesn't mean that there's not meaning potentially there. As a matter of fact, I was just learning about this in the book uh, Signature in the Cell, which is all about the counter argument for atheism. Basically, it's the idea that um, intelligent design is a valid scientific theory. So he's going through DNA as, you know, this really big piece of the puzzle for why there's a lot of merit and truth behind the idea that we really do live in a theistic universe instead of an atheistic universe. So yeah, so the question is, well, why is it that you can interpret something of meaning? Let me just break this down for you a little bit. I didn't want to have this video be too long, but I want to mention this point because it's really important, especially since we're talking about symbolism. You know, why is it that you can say, Justin, that this means anything? Why is it not just random? Well, in the book, Signature of the Cell, they talk about a guy named Shannon, I believe his name is. He's the pioneer of information theory, mathematical information theory. And it's essentially the core concept that I really want to communicate to you here is that, and if there is information somewhere that we can look at, does the information communicate meaning? And if it communicates meaning, what are the possible meanings? So right here, we have an example. I'll just pause this. We have an example where Biden is falling in front of the seal of the United States of America. That can't be argued. It's not like you can say, "Oh, Justin, that's not actually happening." No, it's definitely happening. So what you do is you ask yourself first when you're interpreting meaning, what's the raw data? What's the raw information? What are we looking at? What we're looking at you list the facts. Well, it's Joe Biden, the president of the United States. He is a globalist puppet. He did not play fair. We'll put it that way. I got to be careful what I say on YouTube when he was running against Donald Trump. And he is unquestionably standing in front of the seal of the United States of America. So those are inarguables. They're there. It's like when you're thinking about the meaning, I'm going to use an illustration of a coloring book. You might be able to fill in the colors any way you want, but the lines are there. You can't change those. Well, the objective pieces are that. They're like the lines. Now, you can use red, you can use blue, you can use magenta, you can use all sorts of colors, and that's your personal choice about what meaning you think is at play. But what you can't argue is this. So when the question is, what is the meaning of an event and how do you really know that this meaning is valid? Well, it's valid because you can definitely say that he is these 5 things. And then you ask yourself, what does that potentially mean? And that's the things that I filled in for you. The 2 examples I gave you were, one, that Biden this fall represents the fall of the United States and the fall of the office of the president in a lot of ways. It's symbolic of that. And then I gave you a positive interpretation, which is that, well, it's actually the fall of the false United States of America. It's the fall of the globalist pawn of President Biden and how he represents the globalist infiltration. But the true dream, the true spirit of the United States as being one of the greatest countries on earth. And that's not just like a roo United States. No, there's like objective reasons, which we can talk about at some point in the future. But for now, just accept the fact that the United States is actually the greatest country on earth. And that fall of Biden, while he has yet to ascend past the seal, itself represents a symbolic meaning. And so those interpretations I just laid out there, those they can fit inside the 5 points I made. And because they can fit inside, they're what's called a valid interpretation. Now, you as a person listening and thinking with your own mind might decide, oh, Justin, I don't believe in that interpretation. But that doesn't mean the interpretation doesn't exist. It's a valid idea. It exists out there. And if you don't want to believe in it, that's fine. But it's still there. It still has a valid meaning. So that's what I mean by, this ability to interpret things. So we got those two things. All right, I'm going to stop this here. And I'm going to switch back and finish doing my spiel, and then we'll wrap it up. So God works in mysterious ways. And what I mean by that is he, the creator, uses conceivably everything in creation to get to you as a soul. There's been a lot of allegories in Christian religious works, but not only Christian religious works, that it's as if God loves you so well, and he's so good at loving you, and he's so good at ministering to your needs, and he's so good at trying to raise up your soul and give you an opportunity to climb to the highest potential that you could, that it's basically as if the entire universe of all these beings and things of this sort all exist as if you were the only creature in creation that he was trying to get to. That's how good he is at doing it. Imagine that. To use a parenting analogy, imagine that you were the child of a parent, and this parent was so good at loving every child. Let's say that there were 10 kids. He was so good at loving each of those 10 kids that for your personal experience, it was as if you were the only child. That's how good God is at doing his thing. So that's what I mean. All of this, I think, is very symbolic. I think God works in signs and wonders and omens. And if you have the mind that's willing to consider the possibilities, then you can understand and foresee a lot of things in the universe. And I've been using this for a long time. Carl Jung spoke about this as synchronicity. It's something that, the kind of New Agers talk about a lot, and it's valid. If you try it, you'll be surprised the kind of insights you're going to get. And just one last point on this, because I'm really interested, and you might say I'm a pro synchronicity person, because I hear a lot of people, the nihilistic atheists, the debunkers out there, say, oh, Justin, you're just full of it. You don't know what you're talking about. It's like, no, sorry. I am fighting for the truth in this capacity. And the bottom line is if you act like the God is trying to talk to you and actually send messages to you and interact with you and raise you up and make you the best you can be, then oddly enough, you're going to get insights that give you that very thing. And there are a lot of scientists, believe it or not, and inventors who believe that very thing, Tesla being one of them, Walter Russell being another one, and a bunch of others who felt that they were in direct communion with some type of divine force. Some people believe it's God, some people believe it's an angel, some people believe, all sorts of things. But isn't it interesting that when you consider that that's actually a valid possibility, then the information unquestionably lands in your lap. And that's one of those inarguables too. It's like if it was all just BS, then why would it be that when you start to believe that it's valid, all of a sudden you actually start to get insights? Something to think about. Okay, so let's get into the season of sacrifice bit that I was talking about before. Okay, so I think it's no accident that Biden fell on March 19th, 2021, which marks the astrotheological so-called season of sacrifice. It's the first day of the season of sacrifice. And this has historically been a 40-day window of time when the globalist agenda is furthered in the world. The last day of this season is May 1st. So if you go to the video description, look at the links. I posted the link to the article I wrote a few years ago. It lists a whole bunch of events. It lists the astrotheological case, the science, all that stuff in there. And if you look, what's interesting is that the people that are in power, you might not believe this, but the people that are in power believe that if they do events during certain times of the year, then effectively they're mustering the forces of the cosmos to favor their works. Because ultimately, these guys are like dark astrologers. I can put it that way. It's called celestial physics, is a term that I've heard one of the Vatican priests, I want to say. It's been like 6 years since I read any information on that, but that's a valid term. Okay, so isn't it interesting that this happened? Now, what's interesting is astrotheologically, you might be wondering, well, what the heck is that? Well, astrotheology is itself a kind of grand omen generating system that the universe itself creates specific to Earth. Like, there's a lot to share here, but it's basically the idea that the movement of the stars and the planets in the heavens is itself a kind of hero's journey allegory. It's a symbolic story that that priests and various powerful forces throughout the history have believed was real. And so the idea is that if you time events during certain times of the year, then you will basically sow the earth with fertile seeds of ideas that then can come to bear fruit later on in the year. And so one of the things they like to do is they like to manufacture all sorts of false frame events that manipulate consciousness, push certain globalist agendas. They like to do it like starting often in May 19th. Now, it's not the only time. So if you're thinking, oh, well, Justin, I can think of other times like September 11th, where that didn't fall within the window. Well, that's not the way it works. The point is that this window is the thing about it. In springtime, you're preparing the soil so that the later in the year it can be harvested. That harvest happens often, at the later part of the year in fall. And so symbolically, if you want to create global change in a way that gets your agenda, if you're a globalist, to manifest, then you'll do things at around this time of year. Now, what's interesting is that it's a neutral system. So accept that that's real for the moment, just so we can talk about it. And you might be asking me, well, is it all bad? If things are happening, is it only the bad people are using this, and this technology, this divine, system, this astrotheological system is evil? Well, no, it's a tool. The way the universe works is the universe is essentially immoral, like in almost everywhere you can imagine. What makes something good or bad is not the use of the tool. So if I use a hammer to kill somebody, does that mean all hammers are evil and we shouldn't use them? Well, no, of course not. It's a tool. You can use a hammer to build a house, or you can use a hammer to brain somebody and kill them. So what I would argue is that positive forces know how to use these tools, like Trump and the people he works with. And the creator definitely knows how to. God knows how to. And think about the symbolic meaning. Imagine if you're a Kabbalist, imagine if you're a globalist, and you know about this astrotheological window, you know about March 19th all the way up to May 1st is this big window where all of your nasty stuff's going to happen to try to further the globalist agenda. And then your front man, Joe Biden, for the United States variant, which the United States is the military arm of the globalists, right? We got the Vatican, London, and Washington, D.C. These are the three sovereign city states. I'm sure you all know about that. Well, the United States is like, the military arm. Well, I'll use this finger. I don't want to be giving you guys fingers. So it's a military arm. So if you're a globalist, if you're a Kabbalist, if you're a deep stater, and Biden, the front man, falls on this day, you best believe that these people are looking at this and thinking, what does this mean symbolically? If you don't think this is real, no problem. The Kabbalists definitely think this is real. And I can guarantee you, this is my personal belief, that there are people interpreting events in the world all the time to try to figure out what's going on and if the Dark Lord that they worship is favoring their work. And what do you think it means to these globalists that Biden fell on the 19th? Yeah. So let me finish this up. So while there is a lot to be worried about, I think this event can be interpreted as a prophetic omen that the cabal will go down. And we, the people, will play our part in helping to restore freedom and prosperity to this world. The very fact we care about truth, goodness, and justice and are willing to advance the cause as we are able ensures the forces of heaven will continue to reach down to inspire and uplift the realms of men. And the last line here, pray for peace, walk with bravery, and have the courage to respect what can't be changed and work to change what should be. So I think there is a lot of things happening in the world. I believe that the universe is constantly sending us messages. I believe that if you use prayer is not just like this thing that weird Christians do. It actually is a kind of like, you might think of it as like a kind of divine technology. It's like a way that you as a being, if you believe in God, and I think a lot of you probably do, so I'm not necessarily talking to a lot of my audience right now, but when you pray, And the ideas you invoke in your mind literally activate this thing, this body, this tabernacle that you can use to make contact with the divine and to influence the cosmos and the universe and the creation. And it's not just a one-sided conversation. So when you pray, you do a lot of amazing things in the universe. And for you personally, it helps you change. And then not only can you, not only do you let's say this, because God is not changing, but not only do you influence events that can be changed in, the world around you, but then you open yourself up to more grace or more wisdom or more truth that can be poured into your cup, so to speak, of mind. And then you can drink deep from that cup. And then you, in those moments where you can, then you in that hour can take a lot of action to play a really big role in making the world a better place and changing what needs to be changed. That's what I meant by that. So thank you so much for listening. I'd really love to know your thoughts about this. I haven't really seen too many or too much interpretation of this event out there. So if you have any links or if you have thoughts, please put them in the comments. I really want to know about it. I think this is a really interesting thing that happened. When I saw this last week, I was like, oh my God, this is huge. I've just been insanely busy. I haven't really had a lot of time to produce a lot of content. And I was just like, you know what? I'm going to go on and I'm just going to do a stream. It'll be rough, but it'll be good. And also, I really appreciate all the donations and contributions you'll be getting. Really, if you guys weren't helping support me in this channel, I couldn't do this work. I do this full time, and I really appreciate the support. You can, for as little as the price of a cup of coffee, for a meal, you can support this channel. You'd be surprised what a little bit goes. If you can't support me directly, please share this information, share this video around somewhere where you feel comfortable, of course. That'll also help. We're getting shadow banned like crazy. So if you want to support, I have support links in the description of this video. You can also go to stillnessinthestorm.com/donate. I've got my PayPal up there. I have a new Patriot friendly payment system. So a lot of people have been asking me, Justin, I don't like using PayPal. Can I use my Visa card or a credit card to send you some money? Yes, you can now. I have that system. It was kind of an arduous process to get set up, but I finally got it set up. So go to stillnessinthestorm.com/donate. And you can get that set up right there. Just scroll down. You're going to see it marked Patriot Friendly System right there. You can also support me on Subscribestar. You can make monthly donations, like little as $3 a month. You can help make this work possible. I got a ton of stuff in the pipe right now that's going to be coming out. Probably realistically, with all the work I'm doing elsewhere, it'll probably be maybe Thursday or Friday the next time I get a video up, but I'm going to work really hard to see if I can get a few more things out, because I got like 3 awesome videos that I'm really excited to share with you guys. So thank you so much. Much love. Justin out.